Hello and welcome to Life Beyond the Numbers, the podcast for those curious about creating a more fulfilling work life. Every business boils down to two basics, people and money. Here we focus on the human side. Numbers matter, but people matter most, and people drive performance. I'm Susan Nichriadon, your host, a coach, consultant, facilitator and author of Leading Beyond the Numbers. It brings me joy to speak to people and explore together how, although we share many similarities as humans, each of us navigates the world through our own unique lens. This adds intricacy to our interactions and contributes to both the depth and difficulties of interpersonal relationships. Join us for stories, strategies, and insights to help you lead your life beyond the numbers. Well, today I am absolutely delighted to welcome James Shields to Life Beyond the Numbers. James, you're so welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me at your beautiful home.
Yes, I know. So we're actually sitting in my kitchen. It's pouring rain outside, otherwise we may have gone outside to record this. And the acoustics might not be great as a result, but that won't have any impact on this conversation. I'm pretty sure of that.
And the coffee is good.
Good to
the coffee
hear
is
that.
good.
And James, now I've known you for a number of years. I've been in Oxford since 2018 and I think I met you in 2019 and
Yep.
it's probably the one consistent thing that's been in my life.
I am the consistent in your life.
Not you, per se, but the whole idea of sport and health and fitness, and I would say that as well, even during COVID, only for the athlete centre going online as quickly as you did and maintaining that throughout, I don't know what I would have done because It was just huge. But that's not what we're here to talk about today.
It's not.
We're here to talk about the next evolution, I guess, of where you are and what you're doing. And I was massively struck by the email that you sent out saying that you were on a mission to improve the health of our nation. Now, not Ireland, by the way, the nation of the UK.
Yeah, we'll take anyone.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't think it necessarily needs to be within the boundaries of the UK either.
Absolutely not. No, I think the app that we're developing will go as far. There's an Australian version. You can use it in the US currently. Whether that will change, I don't know. But so you can. There are places abroad that it can be used. So hopefully that will broaden our horizons rather than limit us. We won't have to jump through so many hoops. But we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
So let's take a step back though, and let's talk about what it is. Why, first of all? Why do you want to improve the health of our nation?
I think I've spent my whole life trying to improve the health of someone. And if I go back to, I started life in the army and it was, okay, I need to improve the fitness of my fellow soldiers, to then leaving the army because I didn't get to do that enough for me. And then I wanted to improve the lives and the health of general population. So through personal training. So I set up my own personal training business, created my first personal training studio, which is still going now, but run by some different people. And I did that for a while and it was great, but I felt like, okay, I'm helping people, but I'm helping people who can afford to pay £400 a month. So how do I then go down the ladder, so to speak? Then came the second iteration, which was the athlete centre. And now, again, sort of 10 years on, I'm having this same conversation where it's, okay, now I'm helping people who can afford £100 a month and who are motivated to come to a gym that's called the Athlete Centre, which is intimidating.
It is. I know people that have said that to me, yeah.
Yeah. And I think initially that was why we went with that name, because we didn't just want anyone coming in. We wanted people who wanted to take it seriously. Now, we didn't want serious athletes, but we wanted people who were kind of like, I'm a little bit bored of David Lloyd and the general classes there. Sorry, other gyms do exist, but I feel like I need to take the next step, and I felt like we fitted into that kind of space. So that brings us fairly up to date, and then it was like, well, where do I go from here? Everything's going online, but there's so many things online for athletes. Learn how to do your first muscle up, learn how to squat clean your body weight. And to 90% of the population, that doesn't mean anything.
Even more.
Yeah. It doesn't help them live a better life. It's a short-term aspiration. So we took a step back and we said, well, let's help the people who are sat at home, like our friends, your friends, probably people's listening friends, who are saying, well, I know I need to do something. I want to do more. I've got my children are getting older. I want to play with them, or I've got grandkids coming. I want to play with those. Like, what do I need to do? I know I need to do something. What do I need to do? So I wanted to create something which fit that space and would help those people, and to help those people to future-proof themselves. So to bring an essence of longevity, which is, I know, a bit of a buzzword at the minute. It's kind of getting bandied around, but we want to make longevity accessible, and accessible to the general population who don't have a science degree, who don't listen to longevity experts and get lost within the first 5 minutes, as I do. So it's how do we break down those, because it's really simple, or it can be really simple. So that's what we're trying to do, is how do we simplify this? How do we present it in a way that people can understand, people can follow, and we'll see where it goes.
I mean, there's a lot in there.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay, because I think where I want to go first probably is what you've just said there about maybe 90% of the population and muscle ups and squats and these kind of things, or calling your gym the athlete centre. Because, like you say, everybody wants to do something. They want to be fit and healthy and live longer and live healthily, all of these kind of things. But what stops people from joining somewhere like the Athlete Centre? Or, and this is kind of the second part of that question, is when they do decide to become healthy and fit, especially in our like 40s and 50s, people take on a marathon or a triathlon rather than just easing into something. So you overcorrect or you go to extremes, when actually what you're advocating really for, I think, is something that anyone can do anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, and I think as people, we love, whenever someone says, okay, I want to go to the gym, I want to get fitter, people say, well, you need to set yourself a challenge. And what is that challenge? It's, well, I'm going to run a marathon next year. I've never run before, but I'm going to run a marathon next year. And then inevitably they end up getting injured on the way to the marathon because they're trying to do it too quickly. So I think...
Or they start and stop because they lose motivation very quickly. Absolutely.
And I think that kind of starting and stopping is what most gyms see a lot of, is, you know, people sign up in the new year. By April they've had enough, but they've signed up to a 12-month contract. Next January comes around again and they think, well, this is the year I'm going to do it. And bigger commercial gyms, that's what they live off. That's where they make their money. We are a smaller strength and conditioning gym that has hundreds of members, not thousands of members, and we rely on all of those members who all come. We very rarely have members who pay and don't come. So I think that's kind of the limitations a little bit, and that's also that whole goal setting. Whereas I would say have the goal of being able to stand up unaided when you're 90. That seems like a better goal. Especially if you're coming at this, you're sat there listening to this and you're 50 years old and you've never really been to the gym, or you haven't been for a long time. Don't go and sign up for a marathon. Let's take a small step first, and then let's run a 5K. You know, let's start there, or walk a 5K, and then let's run a 5K next year, and then let's build up, but with the overall goal to be able to stand up unaided when we're 90.
Yeah, or 80 or 70. Because I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like being able to do it all the time. Not losing the ability to do that is as important as being able to do it when you're 90.
Yes.
And I remember somebody showing me that if you can get up off the ground without using your hands, that's a really good indication of longevity.
Yeah.
And I bet you, I mean, that's a challenge to anyone.
Yeah.
Can you get out of the chair without using your hands? Can you get up off the ground without using your hands? Anyway, I digress. the basics, because it's just not about exercise, is it, James?
It's not. I think exercise is a huge component, and we often talk about it as being the biggest tool in our longevity toolkit. But it's not the only tool. And I think if we break this down, it's as simple as we need to move more. We need to generally eat less, although there are some people who need to eat more, because being frail is as much of a risk as being overweight. So eating the right amount, eating the right things, not getting all your calories from cans of Coke. So often I hear or I see online of people saying, well, this is, if you eat this chicken salad, it's got the same amount of calories in as one can of Coke, or whatever it is. I think you just can't compare the two. If you're going to live your life just drinking this can of Coke, you're going to be in a much worse state than someone who's eaten chicken salads, as an example, a terrible example. But so then we've also got things like sleep, mental wellness, flexibility, agility, balance, coordination, all these sorts of things which will go into it. And they have varying degrees of importance in my eyes, and they'll have varying degrees of importance to other people. Someone will put nutrition above exercise. I personally would put exercise above nutrition, but only just. So I think we need to take into consideration all of those things. And again, the sort of route that we're going down is we want this isn't just going to be a training company. It's going to be something which encompasses everything.
It's very holistic. It's already like so we started newsletters in last month sometime, and the topics have varied from dementia to osteoporosis to women's health to just fall over, which I'm going to come back to. And actually this week's one, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, I stopped dead in my tracks because it was about food for thought, emotions matter. And what the author of this wrote was, we don't eat nutrients, we eat stories. Yeah. And I just thought that was such a profound and fantastic line. So there's more than you involved, basically, James, in this endeavour as well. There
are. So at this point, I'm glad you've called it an endeavour, because a lot of people have said, how's the new business going? And for me, a business, I was going to look up the definition before I came here, but for me, a business is something
people
where...
and money.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, we put work in, we get money out of it. And I think, at the minute we're putting work in, there's no money because we're not selling anything yet. So we're doing this free newsletter, and I basically called on all my contacts, and we've got 2 doctors involved. We've got a anaesthetist cardiologist. We've got Kate, who's our women's health specialist. We've then got a couple of nutritionists involved. We've got an osteopath. We've got a couple of strength and conditioning coaches. We're looking to bring in a couple of other people. And they are essentially giving me their time and writing me an article every couple of months to help this thing grow. And they will be rewarded in the future, but they're not being rewarded right now. So which is why we can give that diversity in the newsletters. And it not just to be me drumming on about exercise and trying to give my knowledge on nutrition when I don't know as much as the actual nutritionists. So I think it's really important that we have those people involved, and hopefully the business can sustain them once we start growing, and hopefully they'll get some money out of it eventually.
Yeah, and I think many of us will do stuff, it's not always about money, is it? And this to me is also like a passion project. I'm not saying you shouldn't earn money, absolutely not, but there are different reasons and motivations for getting it up off the ground. Absolutely.
And I think that was one of the really important things when I came up with the idea. I already have the gym, my income is stable. I don't need this thing to work today. It's not like I'm thinking, God, I need money to start coming in because I'm desperate. That's not what it's about. And I didn't want it to be about that, because then I'll rush it. I want it to grow organically. We're not out buying followers. If it grows slowly, even better. I think we want it to be referrals, and obviously we are doing some local advertising, but equally we're just sort of testing it out, see how it goes. And we'll make mistakes, of course we will. And we probably already have. But I think that's part of the journey.
It is. And I think if we could bring that back into exercise, that is what exercise has taught me so much about, I think, especially going to something now. CrossFit is not for everyone, or the Athlete Centre, and I don't mind that, but any of my listeners will know that it's a big part of my life. And even though I only go a couple of times a week, but I've been doing it consistently for quite a long time. But just because I go all the time, it doesn't mean I'm any good at stuff. I will make mistakes, and I think it's really good doing exercise because it shows you that it's okay to make mistakes and you can try again tomorrow. And I think it's one of the best ways we can learn that, because actually in business or in anything, if we can't make mistakes, our ego gets in the way. And there's something about CrossFit that asks you to leave your ego at the door, that enables you to just make those mistakes and learn.
And that's why we have coaches, right? And that's why I'm in the room. That's why you're in this room. And I think that's important. Equally, setting this up, I'm not sat here expecting, like, saying I'm some longevity guru, because I'm not. You know, I know about exercise, I know people who know about nutrition. So we're kind of taking what are the building blocks of building a long, robust, healthy you. And then, okay, we go exercise, nutrition, blah, blah, blah. So we fill those gaps with experts. You know, trying to be the expert of everything. There are people out there who can, but I think let's try and do this with a team rather than just me. But equally, there's people that I listen to. There's someone who I would consider is a longevity guru called Peter Attia, and listen to a lot of stuff by him. I listened to a podcast of his on the way over, actually. And I think he is essentially my coach in this. And I think I will learn from him. He has people that he learns from. And you'd be silly to go into any endeavor thinking you know it all and you know it the best. I think learning from people, and they'll teach you their mistakes. So hopefully you won't make the same mistakes.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought back, though, to gurus and longevity and everything, because I do think there's a lot of hacks out there at the moment, and I'm not talking about people now, but you know, everybody
life
has
hacks.
This lifestyle hack and this weight loss hack and this blah 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 hack. And I'm not going to give my opinion. I'm going to say, like, what's your opinion on some of these, James?
I am really glad. So about maybe 5 years ago, I very nearly set up a company with a guy, and he's an incredible guy, but we had this idea and we were going to call this company The Body Hack. And I'm so glad we didn't, because now I think there's so many of these like life hacks, and I think they just get lost. No one really takes them seriously. There's almost a bit of a joke now, you know. It's like, well, if you put a sports lid on your bottle, it's a life hack, you know. So yeah, I'm so glad I didn't do that. And I think that's my view in it. I think there are things out there which are incredibly useful. Calling them a life hack, any kind of hack, would be doing them a disservice. So yeah, I just don't like the term hack, I don't think.
Yeah, no, neither do I. And I also think it takes away from the seriousness of all of this, because what you were talking about, like longevity and health span, these are serious things. It's about us investing in being future proof.
Yeah.
And actually helping ourselves, taking personal responsibility for our own health and well-being. Now, obviously, sickness and all of those disease, whatever, they're to one side, but you would imagine that there's a relationship still, that if I'm healthy,
absolutely,
all of that. And having a hack it's almost undermining that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it's like by doing this, you're guaranteed to prevent this, and that's not the case, you know.
No, and then I think the other thing that's maybe really interesting is in the last, I don't know how many years, I suppose always things are developing, but we're becoming a lot more conscious of how important movement is, of how important nutrition is, of how a lot of the foods that are available in the supermarkets are full of things that aren't any good for us. It's about back to basics, which is kind of what we're talking about here anyway. But I just wonder, do we already know all of this, James, as a species?
I think generally we do, but there's also so much information out there. I could give you 2 newspapers. I'm not going to say names, but if I give you one newspaper and you'll open it and it will tell you eat avocados to extend your life. And you open the other one and it will say too many avocados will kill you. So there's information out there now, whilst both of those messages might not be incorrect, like depending on who's reading it and how they interpret it, conversation could go a very different way. So I think this is what we want to do, is have our nutritionists, you read the newspapers and say, okay, there's a lot of press on this kind of diet at the minute. And what does that mean? What does that diet actually mean for you? And should you be doing it? And we'll say, okay, well, if you fit into this category, or this category, then it could work for you, providing, X, Y, and Z. But if you are this type of person, or you're really underweight, or whatever other reason, then you definitely shouldn't consider it. And I think that's what we want to do, is take the messages that are being pushed out by media and other sort of platforms, and just lay them out in kind of layman's terms. And what does it actually mean for you? Would this be useful for you? Because there is no ideal diet, as an example, but there are things which could work for other people, not hacks.
Yeah, and I think, the thing is, we're all different. We're absolutely all different. The way we consume food, process it, what kind of muscle, everything we do is different inside. And I think the gut microbiome movement, for want of a better word, has really shown as well how different we are, and the connections between what we eat and our brains and how we can move and all of these things. So I think it's a really exciting time as well as humans, because we've lost our connection to the food that's coming out of the ground, to exercising like we used to roam and hunt, and all of these things that we just did. Like we slept when we were tired, when it was dark, we hibernated, all of these things that I suppose we evolved over lifetimes to now be very dependent on things that are taking us further away from our own natural way of being.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard something the other day, and someone said if you shopped at the supermarket and you just stuck to the outside and never went in the middle, you'd probably be a lot healthier than you are now. And you kind of think about what is around the outside, and it makes a lot of sense,
I used to do that in Switzerland. I had a small supermarket near my house, and in the evenings, if I was going there on the way home, I always stuck to the outside, because you had the dairy, you had the fruit and veg, you had bread, and that was pretty much it, I think. So
and luckily the wine's on the outside, down the bottom, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. I only went into those aisles really to buy coffee or tinned things. But I went with the intention, because that's the other thing, isn't it? If you go to the supermarket when you're hungry, you're done for. Yeah.
The big tip, isn't it, is to go after you've just eaten a meal, and then you're not tempted by all the 2-for-1 on biscuits and things like that.
So there is an element of common sense to this. But I think what's missing is the awareness. And I think it's really interesting what you said, is that there's just so much information out there that I can feel like I'm aware.
Yeah.
But I might be aware of the wrong things or the wrong fad.
Yeah, possibly. I think people will see what they want to see. You could read up about, a certain type of diet and think, that's what I need, that would fit me. And that's not necessarily the case. Whereas I think having an expert who can say, well, do you fit into this category? And if you do, then this could work for you. And if you absolutely don't, then let's keep looking and let's find something which would work for you. But I think misinformation is everywhere. There's 100 YouTubers, all with a different opinion. There's 100 people on Instagram, some teaching us some amazing things, some not. And where do you go? We need some platform that we trust, that can break all these things down. And that's what I'd love Future Proof to be, is like a trusted message. We're not telling you this is what you have to eat. We're just guiding you. If you are overweight, this could help. If you are underweight, this could help. We're not saying avoid this, eat this, stop drinking alcohol. Let's try and find a balance.
It's not a cult, in other words, James.
We're not a cult. No, we're not hackers, and we're not a cult. No.
So let's go back to longevity, because I think one of the other things, and it's not necessarily longevity, is it? It's more the health span.
Health span. It's health. So I think people talk about longevity. It's lifespan versus health span. And I think people think longevity, they think, I'm going to live for longer. That's not the goal here. The goal here is health span. If I said you're going to have someone who lives to 100 years old, but they're going to spend the last 20 years of their life not being able to move, in pain, that's not longevity. But we'd rather live to 90 and have the last 6 months of our life in that decline. Or better still, another thing I heard recently was live long, die fast. And I love that, because I think it's just, that's the goal. We all want to die in our sleep. We all want to live to 90, die in our sleep. Great. That's
live
the
to
idea.
90 healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what we're trying to do here is improve your health span, not necessarily improve your lifespan. We don't want to decrease your lifespan, of course. We just want to improve, make the last decade of your life one of the best decades of your life, not a decade of pain and misery. Because what's the point?
Oh yeah, what's the point? So I'm thinking of like the average listener here now, and who is in their network as well, whether that's work colleagues or family, friends, and so on. And they're thinking, I need to do something. And that's what we started to talk about at the beginning. But I wonder, are there signs, James, that you really do need to do something?
Yeah, I think so. If you take your kids to the park and they're swinging on the monkey bars and you can't hang on a monkey bar, there's warning bells there. If you look down, you can't see your toes, there's a warning there. Like you said, if you struggle to get up off the floor, or if your kids are playing on the floor and you think, I don't really want to get down there to play with you because it's going to be an effort to get back up. All these things, I think that's...
Running for the bus,
yeah, or even doing the little shuffle where you feel like you're running, that's good enough, I think. But when I think back to times in my life where I was at my, in inverted commas, healthiest or fittest, should we say, and I was big, strong, fit, but I couldn't do basic things. I was in so much pain all the time through lifting weights that I'd go to pick my son out of his cot, for example, and I'd have to lean on his cot, scoop him in, and use the other hand to help me get up. And I dreaded him wanting to play on the floor because I knew it would be a struggle for me to get down and get up. So at that point, I had a bit of a chat with my wife and sort of said, okay, I think I need to rein in all the competitions and things like that and just focus on being a bit healthier, a bit fitter, but not chasing the weights, so to speak. And it's done wonders for me, and it's completely reframed the way I look at fitness. Not everything is about how much weight I can lift or anything like that. And I think, again, that's another message that I'm trying to bring forward is like, we should lift weights. We need to lift weights. We do need to lift heavy weights, but it's all relative. We're not chasing 1 rep maxes here. This is about, again, just building a stable platform and a more robust you.
Which is like a healthy approach as well. And I know we're overusing the word health in a way, but when you think it's optimizing as opposed to reaching any targets or anything like that, it's kind of finding what works for you and going with that. And I think that's such an interesting example of, I would never think of you as someone that struggled to lift your son out of his cot because, you can't see James, but he does look fit and healthy and strong, and you are. But I hear a lot of people saying they're pushed through things.
Yeah.
And that's not the way to go either, is it?
No, it's not. And I think, like you said, even if I reflect back on that period of my life, if I had a class, I'd have you guys coming into a class and I knew I had to demonstrate a body weight squat. I'd have to get there early and warm up. So I could do all these things and I could lift all the weights, but I couldn't do it if I wasn't warmed up. So I would have to spend my time warming up so that you would walk in and I would go, yeah, this is how to do a squat. And you'd all go, that looks great. But the reality was you didn't see me
struggle.
Yeah. The sort of 10 minutes before that. And there's been things, I've never been the best mover or anything. I've always been pretty strong, but I think I was strong before I really learned how to do all the movements. So I kind of overcompensated just by, okay, let's just move the weight. And then the technique kind of came, but by that point, a lot of the damage was already done, So, and I think I had times where it was okay, we'd go to an event and it's, okay, we need to lift a big heavy weight. Well, I'll just take a load of paracetamol, ibuprofen, like half an hour before, go and warm up for a long time. And it would go well and I'd feel great while I'm doing it. And then half an hour afterwards, I'd be back to not being able to pick my rucksack up off the floor. It's so that's a prime example of, as you said, just pushing through, or you find ways of getting around it. So it's not even pushing through. It's like, okay, I just know I need to take some drugs before I get to this point to take the edge off, and then I'll be able to warm up, and then it'll be fine. And I think for an everyday person, they'll say, well, I can't just stand up off my chair. What I need to do is I need to push my hands off my legs, and I need to like rock forwards and then or push up off the chair to stand up. And I think that's an example of you finding a way to make something easier because you're not able to perform a task which you probably should be able to perform. Yeah.
And look, we're talking about people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, mainly here and beyond, but we lose muscle mass, we lose all sorts of strength, everything, if we're not using it.
Absolutely.
And like, where does that start? Does that kind of start from our 30s as well? Does it start earlier? Is there a point in life where actually, just because you're slowing down, it doesn't mean you have to be slow? Yeah.
So I think it's after 40, you start losing a percentage of your muscle mass every year or every decade. And it's quite a scary amount. I can't remember exactly what the percentage is, but it's it's quite a scary amount. And that applies to everything. If you take your VO2 max, for example, that will decline at a certain rate. Obviously, it differs slightly in everyone, but we could expect to see a decline every decade. Until
and your VO2 max is?
Being how fit you are.
Okay, yeah.
So the fitter you are, the higher your VO2 max will be. So we talk about, well, we want to... Someone in their 60s who's listening to this might say, well, I'm okay. And I don't need to worry about this. But you got to remember, you're still going to be declining for the next 20 years. And if I said, what are your sort of non-negotiables for when you're 80? And you might say, well, I want to walk up a hill when I'm 80 without a stick. Well, you might be able to do that now. But once you've done another 20 years of declining, are you still going to be able to do that? So what we want to do is we want to improve those things now so that, like a glider coming into land, as the curve kind of comes in, we don't want it to be at zero by the time we die. In other words, we want to set that level as high as we can now so that there's still something left sort of in the last decade of our life.
I mean, it's preventative, really. That's what we're
talking
about here. And I think it's really interesting because I think the health service in general and medicine needs to move this way as well, because we treat symptoms. That's what we do, and we've been doing that for decades, when actually we could probably prevent a lot of the symptoms by taking this stuff more seriously early on. And I would say then that the decline is, you don't notice you're declining.
No,
because it happens so gradually.
Yeah.
And from day to day, you look at yourself in the mirror and you look the same.
Yeah.
You don't change. And then you meet somebody 5 years that you haven't seen them and they go, oh my God, you look so different.
Yeah.
And it's the same with what's happening inside of you, I think. It's that we are normal, in inverted commas, all the time, unless we have an injury or something like that. Whereas our normal may not necessarily be normal or average for our age.
Yeah, and I think if you look around your friends who are a similar age to you and you ranked yourself in there amongst who's the fittest here and who's the healthiest here, rather, because I think we want to, when we think about health, we think about fitness is a part of that, right? It's not all it is, but we think, okay, which one of us is the healthiest? And if you're the healthiest in your group, you're probably doing all right, unless your group's particularly unhealthy. But then I look around my friendship groups. Obviously, a lot of my friendship groups are from the gym, but then I have a military friendship group who I probably won't share this podcast with, but they range from slightly unhealthy to extremely unhealthy. So I'm sat with them and I feel like I'm going to live forever, and they probably think I'm going to live forever, but they have got some serious issues, and part of setting this up. When I go and meet them, I'm kind of like, guys, you need this. I'm setting this up, but you need this. You need to be following this. But yeah, like you said, if the rest of your friendship group is of the same level or like less healthy than you, then you probably feel like you're doing great. But maybe reassess, have a look, make sure there aren't other things you could be doing that could be really improving your health, and make some changes.
And start with walking. I think that's the other thing, isn't it? Just start where you're at.
Yeah.
And walking is never going to do you any harm. I mean, it's such a good all-around exercise that,
Yeah. So we've got an app coming out in hopefully the next couple of weeks. There'll be a 30-minute daily call to action. So that's going to be loosely based around 3 days a week. There'll be some at-home weight training, which could be anything body weight to, if you've got a set of dumbbells, that would be great. But it's things you can do in 30 minutes at home. And that's all we're asking for. I think a lot of the people who are going to be following this either don't want to go to the gym, they haven't got the time to go to a gym. And I hear a lot about, if you haven't got the time to go, you need to make the time. And I think the problem is your gym might be half an hour drive away. And so that's an hour. Then you've got to be able to spend an hour there. So we want to make this as accessible as possible. I think everyone can find half an hour. But the conditioning days, we're going to have some conditioning days, there'll be options. So it might say, right, we want you to spend the next 30 minutes getting as far as you can. Now that might be, for you might be able to go for a run. For someone else, they might say, well, I can't run, but I'm going to walk. And then someone else might say, well, I can't run or walk because my knees, I've got arthritis, but I can ride my bike, or I can go on a rowing erg or something like that. So we're just trying to pitch it that everyone can look at it and find some example. But like you said, walking is amazing. And if you can just get to your 10,000 steps every day, what a great start. If you look at your steps now and you're doing 5,000 steps a day, well, make that your priority. Let's get to 10,000 every day, or at least 5 days a week. Give yourself a bit of a break some days. But I think small steps that we can manage is a great start.
So how is the app going to work then, James? So I download the app when it comes in. What do I need for it? What do I need to be part of it?
I mean, nothing. You need some kind of smartphone. There'll be a free trial on the app as well, so you'll be able to try it out, see if it's for you. And that's about it. If you have no kit, that's fine. We will give body weight options as well. So as an example, if we're doing a goblet squat, which is holding some form of weight in front of you with two hands and squatting. Now that might be to a chair to start with, or it can be, if you're used to squatting, it might just be an air squat. But equally, if you've got no kit, just do it body weight. And if you were to follow the program, doing it with your body weight or finding small things in your house to lift, then you're still going to be in a better spot than you were before the app. So I think that's all you need to get going. A watch, so you can time your half an hour if you go for your walk. And you don't even really need a smartwatch to measure how far you've gone. So you don't need anything really.
Now, the other thing I've noticed especially in my 50s, is things start tweaking.
Yes.
Knees, and I know people who talk about their ankles. So what do people do that maybe have a slight injury, or injury is a strong word even, but they're carrying something that is interfering with optimal performance?
I think we would always say, go and speak to your doctor first. Go and speak to your doctor, your physio, get them to give you the all clear. If you're worried, get the all clear first, and then maybe even take the app along and say, this is what I'm being asked to do. Do you think I can do this safely? If you're still unsure, there will be another tier, which will be a sort of more personalized tier where you can come to us and say, I have X, Y, and Z wrong with my knees or my hips. And then we can look at those in a bit more specifically and give you some things to work on with that. But if we think about back pain, knee pain, all of those things, the worst thing we can do for any of those is to not move. Like people with back pain, the worst thing is sitting down. Generally, I get that there's other nuances to this, but generally inactivity is the worst thing. So how do we get you active, and how do we get you active safely that you're not going to cause more damage? Like, we can find a way. And if you go to a physio and they say you just need rest, my advice is find another physio.
Totally. And I know that I've done exercise with all sorts of different things over the years, but when you're with people who actually care about how you move and want you to do that safely, then they will help you find an alternative way to exercise or whatever. And movement, I mean, somebody told me one day, I thought it was great, is motion is lotion.
Yeah.
And it is really, because we were long ago, I hate saying that, but long ago we were told if you pull a muscle or you do it, you should rest, just not do anything. Whereas absolutely don't stop moving, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Always be moving.
Well, and as an example, we have people who come to the gym who will say, my knees hurt when I squat, not naming names. But and we'll say, okay, well, your knees hurt when you squat, show me a squat. And then we'll tweak that. So we'll say, okay, well, let's try screwing our feet into the floor, or let's try sitting back a little bit further so the angle of our shin changes. All these little things. And eventually, guarantee we can find a way where you can squat without pain. It might be to a chair, to a bench, to a box, whatever it is. But there's small changes you can make, wider stance, narrower stance, that will alleviate the pain at least.
Mm. And I think the other thing about exercise is it's not just good for our physical bodies, it's also really important for the brain. And I think that's coming out more and more with research as well. And mental health. I mean, I think everything, any bit of exercise is moving is good for us. Well, we're coming close to end, James, so I just wanted to... One of the newsletters that went out that I thought was brilliant, and there might be people listening to this who have elderly parents as well, because in that age group that we're talking about, we tend to have our parents are older too, because it was about the difference between having a fall and falling over. And I'd love you to just speak to that for a moment or two.
Yeah, I hear so often that someone says, oh, Auntie Joyce has had a fall. I kind of thought, well, at what point do we go from... Because if I fell over, it doesn't really matter how it was. If someone said I'd had a fall, I'd be mortified. And so at what point is there like an age where you go from falling over to having a fall? And so I wanted to really think about that. It's an article I've been wanting to write for a while. Just kind of needed a little bit more substance to it. And then I think it's less about the age and it's more about that person, because I have heard people refer to people in their 50s as having a fall. But if you fell over, you would never say you've had a fall.
No.
Right? No.
But like we said before we started recording, I still think I'm in my 20s anyway.
That's just true. Yeah. And I think even if my mum's fast approaching 80, not that fast mum, but mentally she's in her 20s. And I think if she fell over, I still wouldn't refer to her as having a fall. She's fit, she's active, she's mobile. And I think that's the key, we all want to be in the position where we fall over rather than have a fall. And let's try and make sure that happens for as long as possible. I think, the reality is people having falls tends to be more elderly and they've fallen suddenly. It hasn't been that they've tripped over a box or something like that. It happens suddenly and usually results in some kind of break or fracture, hospital. But we so often hear about these things, so-and-so had a fall and then their health declined at a rapid rate. The ability to avoid having a fall and falling over is sometimes as simple as having the reaction speed to just put out a foot. How often do you trip on something and you put out a foot and you stop yourself? And I think hopefully through Future Proof or whatever other exercise method you take up, hopefully we can avoid that and make sure you just fall over for as long as possible.
And language matters so much, doesn't it? The attitude shifts completely when you think, oh, somebody had a fall, oh my God, there's like a frailty and a fragility and all of those things. Whereas if somebody fell over, you might laugh. Yeah. I often laugh at people falling over because it seems so innocuous. There's nothing, people slip on some ice. It doesn't, it's just like, it's just an inconvenience, isn't it? Yeah.
Whereas I think, if I wouldn't I don't think I would laugh at someone saying my nan had a fall. Whereas if someone said John fell over, I might laugh at that.
Yeah,
you know.
and also your nan or John, depending on the language they use, John could easily think I had a fall even though he just fell over, and I suppose you could kind of tense up as you're falling as well, whereas like you're saying, if you remembered that reaction and put your foot out or whatever, balance yourself. Yeah.
And I think that's something else that we lose as we age, is our reaction speed. But again, the faster our reactions are now, the better they're going to be when we're 80. So let's get working on those now.
Yeah, and at the beginning we talked about that challenge, that somebody taking up the new fitness or something and they go, right, I'm going to run a marathon or I'm going to do a triathlon or whatever. And I really like that challenge to yourself to live healthily as long as possible and actually have some sort of benchmark yourself every year that you can test yourself. Can I get up off the floor? Whatever it is. Yeah. But there's something simple that isn't like a marathon or that actually is really just brings you back to basics. I'm doing this okay, because this isn't about being able to lift massive amounts of weight or eating like a monk or whatever. This is just about having a normal, in inverted commas, life.
Yeah, we did one of the tests. Me and one of the other guys did one of the tests yesterday, which is, so it's a grip strength test. So you hang from a pull-up bar. Or you go to a park and you hang from a pull-up bar. And the goal is, if you're a male of 40 years old, you should be able to hang from a bar for 2 minutes. Or if you're a female, 1 minute 40. And it's a grip strength test, but it kind of tells you more than that. If people listening to this just think, well, I just need to get stronger grip, and that will be a good sign of longevity. It's not going to work. This is more about, what have you done up to that point? How does your weight, like body to weight ratio, all these sorts of factors play in. But yeah, we did the test, and one of the guys in his 20s didn't quite manage to do it. And it's hard. It's a hard test. I was quite surprised how hard it was. I thought it'd be a lot easier than it was. So I challenge listeners to do that. Go and find a pull-up bar at the park and just see how long you can hang there for. And if you're getting over a minute, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And if you manage 3 seconds today, well then go back next week, try again. If you're getting over a minute, I think you're doing really well. If you're hitting 2 minutes, then gold star for you. I'm going to have to try that now. Because that competitive part of me is like, I need to see if I can do that, and I bet you I can't. But I don't know.
I'm going to have a go.
Yeah.
But the other one I was just thinking about as you were talking about that is the plank. I'm sure that's another one that's quite a difficult exercise when you're starting from scratch. But it's one that people do because a lot of people will do yoga and things like that. But again, I think that's a good one.
That's another good one. The issue with the plank is, there's good planks and there's bad planks. You can have your bum too high and it becomes really easy, or your hips are on the floor and then it becomes really easy. So I suppose if you compare that to the hang test, hanging on a bar, there's not really any technique to it. You just hang and you can either hold or you can't. Whereas with a plank, we can manipulate our bodies to make it a little bit easier. So yeah, I think unless you've got someone like standing over you who knows what they're doing and could say, don't move from this position, then yeah, the plank is a good test, but I'd say make sure you're doing it correctly.
Okay, so my last question, James.
Yes.
It is now, we're in late May doing this recording, so it's May 2030.
Okay.
What would you like to be saying about future proof and where it's at?
I'd love to say we've got a lot of users that we're making an impact in their lives. I'm not concerned about how many we have. I'd just like some great stories about how people weren't able to play with their grandkids and now they can, or they've had grandkids and they never felt so healthy. I'd love to have some companies on board, so we want to try and get some companies on board where they just buy licenses for their companies. If anyone out there has a company and they want to test it for us, then let me know and we can get it out there. But we want to help people, want to help as many people as we can. So if there's people who have organisations that work with people from areas of deprivation that might not be able to afford this but think would benefit, then again, get in touch and we'd love to help you. I'm happy to give this away for free if it's going to benefit people. I think that's...
I was just thinking of like old folks homes and stuff as well.
Absolutely. We're speaking to a charity at the minute about rolling out to them, and offering them a sort of blanket discount system where if someone can afford it, great. If someone can only afford 50%, fine. If they can't afford anything, they can have it. We just want to, let's get this going. Let's help people and let's see where it goes.
And then maybe just one last thing, because both of us live in Oxford, and there are people listening in Oxford who have never been to the Athlete Centre.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
I'd say come and give it a go. I think, as with anything, the hardest step is the first step. And I think stepping through the door, I appreciate it's a challenge. There's the name on the door, it's intimidating, but the people there are so welcoming. I think everyone just wants to see you do well. No one cares what you look like. No one cares what you wear. We don't have loads, we don't have any mirrors. I think in the last place we had one mirror. We don't have any mirrors.
No one cares how old you are.
No.
How fit you aren't.
No, yeah. People are just impressed that you're there, and people just want to see you do well. And when you walk in, everyone will say hello. When you leave, everyone will give you a fist pump and tell you well done. And we'll see you again next week.
Fantastic. James, thank you so much. And I will put links in the show notes to everything we've talked about today, the app and the newsletters and all of that. And I wish you the very best with this endeavour.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me today on Life Beyond the Numbers. If something in this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to leave a review. It helps others like us discover this podcast and join in our conversation. Until next time, keep exploring the human side of work life.